Three of us tonight will be sharing our thoughts in a kind of a chat format. And let me introduce Dr. Carl Rook, Professor of Classical Studies at Boston University, Dr. Susan Fry, Eclectic Explorer, and myself, Richard Emanuel, Minister of the Experimental Church in East Gloucester. It's hard to believe that we have an evening of reality that is in question. That's the purpose of this discussion tonight, is our hidden parts of ourselves. As we did in the last two presentations, we're going to start off with a movie of 2 minutes, the human story in 2 minutes. We human beings have quite a story, don't we? Not much can be said as to our future without our consciousness making some very heavy decisions that are going to be coming up for the next few generations and the generation that we represent. Most of us appear to be baby boomers. We wish there were a few millennials tonight, but let's go on with the story. And I give you Dr. Carl Rook, and he'll make a presentation, and then I will follow, and then Susan will pull up the story, and we'll then go into a moment of everyone getting a chance to make some comments. Thank you.
Hi. In December of last year, we made an announcement of a project for a new museum complex in Greece. And this September, we made a presentation at the village outside of Athens to further the project. And as part of that presentation, I tried to show that this ancient religion, which lasted for 2,000 years, had a message to offer the present world. And our topic actually tonight is the hidden world. And by chance, I co-authored a book about the hidden world. There are two aspects to this hidden world. One is one that you fantasize, by which you've been trained in stories. It's a mythical world. But I'm going to show you also that this mythical world peopled by things like fairies and so forth, is only an aspect of another hidden world, which might be the ultimate secret of our existence. And both of those were involved in this ancient mystery. In case you're interested, there have been secrets that have been well kept. And as part of the Hidden World book, there is a DVD presentation which you can access if you search for it on your computer. And it has to do with the fact that the elite in society have had secrets that they don't want to share with you. But be that as it may, our project is called the Gaia Project, and it takes place, the religion took place outside of Athens at the end of a road of about 14 miles in the village of Eleusis in ancient Greek, Elefsina in modern Greek. And for this experience, the initiates, after a year of preparation, left Athens. Here you see Athens with its reconstruction of Athens. Has several gates. This one, called the Sacred Gate, was the entrance to the road, which is still called Iara Odos, the sacred road, that took you to the village. And so once a year, a group of several thousand people journeyed by foot after a year-long preparation so that they would know what to expect on this sacred road. Most of the sacred road today is a concrete superhighway, but there still is a portion of it, as you see here. You crossed the mountain ridge that separates the plain of Attica from the adjoining plain of Elefsina. It was once the most fertile piece of agricultural land in antiquity. The place was specially blessed by the fact that it had a wonderful harbor formed by the island of Salamis, lying close offshore. And because of its blessing, it was sacred to the earth goddess. The earth itself had shown that it was sacred by locating the spot as aligned with the two peaks of an adjoining mountain on the further side of the plain. And you can see what has happened. We have misused Gaia's resources. So it is now one of the most polluted places on our planet. We are taking from the earth its bounty. There are three, in fact, paradigmatic industries there. Oil refineries belching pollution into the air. There is an iron foundry and a cement factory. And they're actually digging away at the sacred ground in order to turn it into cement. So in the 1970s, I was part of a team that sought to find out what it was that happened at this sanctuary. And we demonstrated that the initiates were afforded a glimpse into a transcendent reality. As Cicero said, it was something experienced by almost all the great figures of classical antiquity, as well as common people, regardless of sex or social class. It was a big deal to do this. It cost about a month's salary to provide for the initiation. 30 years later, I returned to the subject to summarize what we had found and to present a more readable account of it. And when I asked my colleague, Albert Hoffman, to write a comment, even if it was only a sentence in view of the fact that he was quite old at that time, he said that only a new Eleusis could solve the problem facing the problems of humanity today. Now, what did he mean? He obviously didn't mean that we should restore the old religion. Most of us believe we have far too many religions anyway, and the problem is that they want to have exclusive rights to the afterlife or to cosmic consciousness or the noosphere, whatever you want to call it, and he certainly didn't need that. As Pindar said about the mystery, he knows the end of life as well as its divinely granted beginning. Something happened at the sanctuary of Eleusis that gave hope and meaning to humankind for 2 millennia. Cicero said, "For among the many excellent and indeed divine institutions which your Athens has brought forth," Athens, which by the Roman period was, as it is today, the icon of civilization, your Athens has brought forth and contributed to human life. None, in my opinion, is better than those mysteries. So, Albert Hoffman, who, because of his discovery of LSD, is largely credited with introducing a new kind of mentality in the past century. He, looking back at the end of the century, he wrote probably more than anyone else influenced. Here you see his famous 1943 bicycle trip, that we need a new Eleusis. Cicero credited the ancient mystery enacted at Eleusis as the essential impetus for the evolution of humankind's rise from slavery to civilized modes of life. He said, "We have learned from them the beginnings of life and have gained the power not only to live happily, but also to die with a better hope." The Great Hall of Initiation, which was constructed actually as an architectural similitude of a cave carved out of the Acropolis rock at the side of the village of Eleusis. And what it offered was something known as the Platonic escape from the cave. The cave is like the womb of earth. It often, in fact, has a shape which is very obscenely suggestive. And the cave was the gateway to birth into this realm of ordinary reality. It offered release from the cave of ordinary seeing. But we know the mystery dates largely from the 7th century, but it was older than that. And it goes back to a time when the goddess was supreme. Here is a version of her from Greece, about 4000 BC, and you can see that there's something strange about her. It was an assimilation of that earlier religion of the goddess to the evolving religion of the classical age, in which a patriarchal revision took place and the Olympian gods were in control. The earlier version of the goddess can be documented from Crete, and here you can see that she's wearing on her head a crown of opium poppy capsules. The story of the mystery is that Hades had abducted the Earth Mother, Demeter's daughter, to Hades. It was an abduction. It wasn't a marriage. She was picking flowers with the Sisterhood of Maidens when he suddenly appeared and snatched her away. You can see even the ancient artists were quite clear about the fact that this was a highly sexual event. Persephone was abducted to her abductor's realm of Hades, but there she conceived a child by him, and she is going to give birth to that child back into this world. The pattern of the mystery is that the chthonic reality of the earth is making a mediation with the celestial realm of the patriarchal evolving system of Olympian deities. We know that the initiates drank something and they saw something, and we know what they saw. They saw Persephone coming back with her child. The ingredients for the potion is part of the secret. It contained a wild herb, fleabane, with connotations of the concubine of Hades, together with water and barley. The connotations of opium that you saw on the Cretan goddess's head have connotations of narcosis and sleep, and it often, in fact, was a form of funeral offering. The way that Persephone became bound to Hades is that as a celestial being, she could have no body. She was pure. She couldn't take material substance into her body, only special foods like nectar and ambrosia. But as she was leaving Hades, he gave her a seed of pomegranate to eat, and that sullied her body, so she was no longer purely celestial. She was matter as well as spirit. That is to say, she had become like us, and as such, she became pregnant by that seed, but she also could never return completely to the Empyrean realm of the celestial gods. The opium poppy capsule, in fact, is quite large, and it resembles a pomegranate. Here you see Persephone with her now husband, Hades. This comes from another sanctuary that celebrated the sanctity of marriage. He's holding the wild herb, the pennyroyal, and she's holding the barley. By this event, death became an in-law of the eternal, immortal gods of the celestial realm. This is the vessel from which they drank the potion, and we were able to determine that mediating between the wildness of the fleabane herb with its connotations of pre-civilization characterized by the rape of the female, the abduction of the female, to the evolving tradition of matrimony and harmony between the chthonic realm and the celestial realm, which is characterized by the planted crop of food, barley. Mediating between them is a fungus, ergot, which produces a visionary substance. What the initiates experienced when they drank the potion in the telesterion, the hall of initiation, was that they journeyed in the spirit to the other world. There was a cave, in fact, beside the hall of initiation, which was an entrance to the underworld. And when they got to the underworld, they were hospitably entertained by death. This was a sacred bond celebrated in Greek custom. Your guest was a holy obligation, and so death had entertained you, which meant that death could then visit you, and you owed death the same obligation of entertainment, hospitable tendance. And as such, you could expect your life to be more profitable, more fortunate, because you knew where you were going and you enjoyed what you were doing. So the moment of the mystery was that the goddess, here you see an early version of her from Anatolia, gave birth. And when the mystery was seen, Persephone, as a vision, appeared with her child, and you returned at the same moment, reborn as her child. The mystery was announced as Brimo has given birth to Brimos. That wasn't enough for some people in antiquity, so there was a kind of heresy that evolved that you didn't want to go to the other world. You wanted to come back again. And you didn't want to keep coming back and going there. You wanted to purify yourself completely of this contamination with matter and to have a home in the Empyrean, beyond the realm of the gods, the realm of eternal, total consciousness. So today, we have the same problem. We have destroyed Gaia. We've used up our planet. Should we travel to outer space and find another planet to inhabit, assuming that the inhabitants of that planet are intelligent like us and not more intelligent than us, and assuming, in fact, that our life forms are compatible, because we might really react to each other as viruses? Or are we going to renegotiate our contract with this planet? And what we are proposing is that we will renegotiate our contract. So we're not going to look for other worlds to colonize. We're going to renew the way we treat our own planet. As I said last time, you don't go anywhere when you die. You change. And there's very little possibility that you're ever going to leave this little speck in the total universe. So we have to tend it, whichever way we're going, if we survive at all. So we plan to renegotiate our planet, our covenant with the planet. We're going to incorporate, we're not going to destroy the industries upon which we depend. We're going to incorporate the present industries around Eleusis as works of art, surround them like parklands, and to renew the fertility of the plain and realize that they're actually quite beautiful. What I'm showing you here, in fact, is a city in Mexico which has made art monuments of its former industries. So, it's stupid. The war on drugs, we don't want species to be become extinct, and yet we've decided that some species, we'd be better off if we didn't have them. And when you make something a drug, you deprive it of its sanctity, you turn the entheogen into a criminal offense. Albert Hoffman, shortly before his death, wrote to Steve Jobs, since he had heard that Steve Jobs felt that LSD had provided him with a new kind of mentality, to tell him how it had benefited him. Albert died before Steve Jobs could answer the question. He said, "I'm interested in learning more about how LSD was useful to you." Gary Mullis discovered the polymerase chain reaction with the aid of LSD. And what Terence McKenna said, psychedelics are dangerous because they provide a totally different view of reality. Many people have testified that you work on a problem and you can't solve it, and then something happens. Maybe you go to sleep, it comes to you during your sleep, something hits you on the head, and you realize that you've seen it all wrong. Albert Hoffman, who probably should have received a Nobel Prize and who in fact sat on the committee awarding prizes for chemistry, because of the misuse of these sacred substances, turning them into drugs instead of entheogens, he wrote an autobiography about LSD as his problem child. So what is it that the experience offers you? You enter the world of myth. You realize that what you thought was only imagining is actually a truth. And as I said at the beginning, some of the greatest discoveries of the fundamental structures of our world, we don't like to think of it, but the recent scholarship shows that someone like Pythagoras, he wasn't sitting in a study reading books, he was incubating in a cave, probably with the aid of a psychoactive sacrament, quite probably. So what is this museum going to be? It's not going to be just a museum. It's going to be a place where we investigate new investigation into modes of cognition, into the secrets of religious traditions. It will sponsor programs investigating new modes of experiencing the origins of religious cognition. After all, go back. We fucked up everything. Awareness of the origins of religious cognition will predate the evolution into religious traditions. We're not interested in Christianity, Judaism, Muslimism, Buddhism. We're interested in what is beyond that. It was a heresy even in the medieval period that beyond the Godhead was another realm. And churches don't like that because they want to claim total control of this cosmic consciousness. So we hope to reconcile the dangerous dogmatism of competing faiths. One of the agenda of the Gaia Project as a World Center for renegotiating the terms for our use of the Earth's resources will be investigating modes of addiction therapy, as well as promoting a sane drug policy that includes harm reduction rather than criminalization. It will also promote new artistic and scientific creativity. There's now an art colony already established at the site where our museum is going to be. It will develop environmentally friendly use of the planet's resources. We seek new avenues of spiritual enlightenment, as William Blake said, to see a world in a grain of sand and heaven in a wildflower. Hold infinity in the palm of your hand and eternity in an hour. As the motto of our project is, the future will start here at Eleusis. So I hope that in future years I may be able to report to you that we have raised the funds and begun construction of this new World Center for the renegotiation of our contract with Mother Earth.
Big question. Where is the hidden reality? Obviously, through classical studies, we look back into the past. We look back at our origins of consciousness, and that consciousness has been evolving, and the consciousness that we have today is not the same consciousness that people had 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 years ago. They've left their evidence of consciousness on the planet in the forms of artifacts, forgotten cities, architecture, monuments, and all have passed. In my studies, I looked at a period of 2,500 years ago in the 6th and 5th century BCE. An amazing event plane took place in China, in India, in Greece. A consciousness rose that was asking questions, philosophical questions, questions about who am I, and what is this about? A difficult problem is, how do we see oneself? Do we see ourselves through others? How do we see ourselves? Remember as a child, and I'm sure you all had the experience with a mirror, seeing oneself within a mirror. Who's in the mirror? What side of the mirror are you on? In these studies in LSD that were done 50 years ago, documentations, I'm looking into a vortex, a self-induced vortex of choice, exploration. What's happening today is we are not exploring who we are, who the mystery is in oneself, the hidden part of ourselves. We talk about death, we talk about fears, we talk about anxieties. How am I going to make the next day? Well, Heraclitus, I'll read it to get it accurately, said, "Living and dead are the same, and so are the awake and the asleep, young and old. The former, when shifted, are the latter, and again the latter, when shifted, are the former. Doesn't that tell you something, that this is all an illusion? But we don't dare see ourselves in those concepts. People dared to think back then. I don't think we're thinking now. I think we're looking for some quick fixes. Some of the reaction I've gotten from the previous studies that we've done, the last two, were that, well, we didn't get any information as to how to do something. How do you deal with death? You don't deal with death, you live it. The minute you get into life, that is part of what you are. We have the illusion of a beginning and an end. We are dealing with our self in a mystery, a deep mystery, and yet we don't even take time to explore it. Look at, we go shopping. When we have anxiety, we eat, we drink. We use it all to lose it, not to find it. And this is part of the problem in terms of setting up a session like this. Do we present comfortable information, or do we push the audience a little bit? Or do we push ourselves some? And for this process, I find myself pushed by this event plane of putting this stuff together, because it's not easy. Where did we think when we signed on to life that this was going to be easy? That it was going to be fun? One person asked me, they said, well, Richard, why did you come here? And I said, well, I saw the poster, Visit Planet Earth, Sex, Drugs, and Rock and Roll. And that was, wow. But the fine print, which I missed, said suffering, anxiety, a whole list of things. And then I thought, well, maybe that's Pandora's box. So in this process of how do we know is the period that we're in, existential times. We are losing it, folks. Our culture, our civilization, our species is losing it. And that's how we're going to find it. We're going to find it only by losing it. The Project Gaia is a project in an attempt to bring about a new awareness. What are we doing in this community to bring about a new awareness? What are we doing when we talk about what is the mystery of life? Is there a mystery to life? Of course there is. And we're avoiding it at every turn. We're avoiding it in every session. As I said, there was no statement that this is going to be easy. We may never figure this out, but we don't stop. We have to take it within ourselves to look in the mirror. Look at this problem about plastic surgery. We cannot grow old in this society. We cannot have wrinkles. We cannot have deformities. We cannot be ourselves in this culture. In fact, we make a business out of it, not being here in the now, not recognizing our hidden agenda. And what is that hidden agenda? Well, we've been told, be happy. The smiley face. How do we know that? What are we looking for? I started an experimental church in 1968. I know less now than I knew when I started it. Because youth believes, well, we get this figured out. Let's see how long it's going to go. And then as I got further and further into it, I remembered, wow, this is not what I have been told. Everything I have been told appears to be a lie. I was raised a Roman Catholic. I gave up Christianity when I was studying at the Catholic University of America. As Carl mentioned, the elite has an agenda to keep from you the real knowledge of what is going on. What are you as a spiritual being? They don't want you to figure it out. They want you to follow, not to be yourself, but to follow. Simon says, do this. Simon says, do that. The founding fathers of this nation were smart enough to understand that the combination of belief and politics was a very bad combination, that it could lead to very, very misuse of power. Look at what we're experiencing. We're experiencing a hidden reality within the politics of a democracy. This is a spiritual problem. It's all about how can I get more? How can I get mine now? And who cares about the other? So, if we are to go anywhere, we have to recognize the unity of opposites. When somebody has a different point of view, well, the opposite is making yourself valid because you have something to react to. You have something to be. You don't have to agree with the person, but you have to respect that position. No matter how intelligible it appears, you say, well, wait a minute, I have to do some research on that. So there's always going to be a hidden reality. It's always going to be revealing itself. That is the joy of being. And there's a big difference between being and becoming. Both are the same path. Both are the same thing. They are the unity of opposites. That's why Heraclitus was able to say, young and old are the same. The living and the dead are the same. This is all an illusion of our process to understand oneself. This is the deepest mystery that we have. The ancients knew it. Where did we lose it? Where did we lose the mystery? So in this attempt to discover, we must take time out and take the look at oneself. Look in the mirror. Realize that you are whole. You are the story. You're not going anywhere. You can be anywhere you want to be in your own presence. We have great powers that we haven't even tapped. And that's where we are attempting, by these chats, to get you into your own examination. How do you think? What do you feel? What is your sense of being with another? The greatest fear, I believe, in this culture is the idea of being alone. Think about it. That perhaps is the greatest of the hidden mysteries, because we come into this world alone and we leave this world alone. I turn it over to Susan Fry, and she'll pick up. Thank you.
So in 2011, there were two books that were published, both bestsellers. One was a book by the physicist Brian Greene, and he wrote an interesting book, well worth reading, called The Hidden Reality. And of course, as a physicist, he was focusing on the cosmos, parallel universes, new information about multiverse theories, etc. But interestingly enough, even some of the information in this fairly recent book has been outdated because it was prior to even the Higgs boson being isolated in the Hadron Collider in Switzerland in 2012. And now even the Higgs boson, which they determined there was a Higgs boson, and now it's like, well, was it the Higgs boson? And that only took, 10 years and $3 trillion and whatever. But anyway, it was worth it. So that book came along the same time as another bestseller. And that was a book called The Magic of Reality. And that is by the evolutionary biologist Richard Dawkins. This was also a bestseller. This actually was a book written for children. I have to tell you, you have to be a very precocious child to read this book with full understanding, but it has great pictures. But it was a really good read. But interestingly enough, about both of these books, even some of the, his premise as an evolutionary biologist was, what is science and what is magic? And can we go back and forth? So I actually was inspired to write an essay for I take the Veterans Writers Workshop. It's a collaboration with the Gloucester Writers Center and the Veterans Administration here in Gloucester. And it's run under a facilitator, Dorothy Nelson. So anyway, these two books, I decided to be inspired to write an essay for Dorothy, for my chapbook. And it's called As Above, So Below. And Carl is talking about ancient myths, mythology, Richard the cosmos, and so as above, so below. There is nothing like thinking about the cosmos to blow your mind. But of course, most of us don't. We keep our thinking fairly local. But the ancient script, as above, so below, does give one pause about what is really our reality. Fact. In our galaxy, there are over 40 billion planets that could support life. Each planet shares personal space with billions of stars and moons, just like our own sun. When I was in high school, we thought the universe was just our galaxy. Fact. Our understanding of the universe is still in its infancy, though having come a long way since Copernicus. String theory, gravity, anti-gravity, electromagnetic fields, strong and weak forces, dark matter, dark energy, and the fact that less than 4% of our reality is visible. That offers the big picture in this universe. Fact. Multiverse theories, currently 11 scenarios, have gained global acceptance in astrophysics and cosmology circles. The isolation of the Higgs boson, which I mentioned in 2012 in the Large Hadron Collider in Switzerland, catapulted the God particle to another dimension, and that is the big picture. But what about the little picture? Us and our individual universes that come down to atoms, neutrons, quarks, nanoparticles. Fact. Although we and everything around us appears solid, it is mostly empty space. Rocks, wood, lead, this building, you and me, are packed together with mostly empty space between the atoms. The nuclei of atoms are spaced so far apart that, according to Richard Dawkins, if they were spaced if they were scaled to football size, any pair would be about 10 miles apart. What delivers the illusion of reality or solidity are those forces, the gravity, electromagnetic fields, strong and weak forces, et cetera, as above, so below. The Buddha speaks of the illusion of reality and how desire keeps us bound to the solid world. Give up the attachments, and we are liberated. But to where? To the big picture, the cosmos, or to the space between? Whatever, wherever, it still remains a mystery, but as above, so below. So our reality is really a very precarious thing when you consider the information coming out of the high grand pupas of science and physics, even medicine. For instance, when I was in nursing school in the 60s studying anatomy and physiology, most of the stuff I learned isn't even true anymore. For instance, your brain. Your brain was, of course, the organ of the neurons, and neural connections was the intelligence that drove us, drove the body, drove the mind. But we now know that all organs in your body have neurons. As a matter of fact, the heart has more neurons than the brain. Your immune system has neurons. Your stomach has neurons. In other words, the body is communicating all the time with all of your organs, all of your systems. Means that there's intelligence in the cellular level of your body, not just your brain. Who would have thunk? Anyway, we're talking about reality, or what is reality. And when I was studying Buddhism in the 80s, there was an ancient saying in a Dalai Lama, one of the Dalai Lama books. He said, the Tibetan say, everyone dies, but no one is dead. And I thought that was kind of an interesting concept. And it really didn't hit home until 2003 for me, when my mother died. And my mother, I mentioned in our previous sessions, where she was a woman of strong will, determination, A, religious, A, philosophical. This was it. This reality was, there ain't nothing after this. This is it. Have a great life. And that's it. That was her belief system. We all accepted it. And she died in August of 2003. And about a month later, my cousin Nancy, who we were the same age, had the same birthday, our mothers were sisters, and Nancy grew up in Florida. And I really never knew Nancy because she was in Florida and I was in New England, blah, blah, blah. And the family always thought Nancy was really kind of a wacko because, first of all, she breastfed her son until 6 years. And she also had some very interesting, she was a great follower of the ARE, which is the Edgar Cayce Foundation. And she was also into telepathy and teleportation and all, that kind of stuff. And we were like, whoa. I think that was the breastfeeding that really got people. Anyway, by the way, her two children, both are graduate of Princeton, and both, one made Olympic swimmer, and the daughter made Olympic diver. Must be something to that breastfeeding. Anyway, so Nancy calls me and she says, and Nancy, by the way, had never had a conversation with my mother. I don't even think they ever exchanged recipes. So she calls me and she says, Susan, I went to this seance in Trumbull, Connecticut, because she would do that kind of thing. And she said, we're all sitting at this big table, and there was the medium who was calling, under a trance and channeling or whatever happens. And all of a sudden, the medium says, I'm hearing from Irene. Well, Nancy was like, oh, perked right up. That Irene was my mother's name. She says, oh, I have an aunt. My aunt, Irene. She just died about a month ago. So the channeler is, calling in whatever mom has got to say. And when she's doing this, Nancy is feeling this unbelievable pain in her neck and up her occipital ridge. And it's like a poker that has been, a hot poker that has been stabbed. And she's, what the heck is going on? So then the channeler says, and this is the message from Irene. It's not like I thought it was going to be. So it meant nothing to Nancy, because she had no idea what my mother believed or anything. So anyway, I said, well, I can interpret that. My mother is, she didn't have any belief system, so I don't know what she's experiencing, but obviously it's nothing what she thought it was going to be. So about a week later, I get a missile from Nancy, who received something in the mail from this group who does these seance readings. And she said, I thought I'd share this with you because the evening that we were in this group, there was someone in the room taking Polaroid pictures. And she thought no one was talking about it and no one was given anything, but anyway, so what she got in the mail was the Polaroid picture, which I'm going to share with you. I had it blown up. But it's deteriorated somewhat because it is a Polaroid. So Nancy's daughter is a professional photographer. So she had asked her daughter if this could be photoshopped, if what you see in this image could actually be done with some kind of a processing, film processing or whatever. And it's clearly a Polaroid. So her daughter looked at it and said, she researched, said, I can't duplicate it. I can't replicate it. Don't know. So anyway, this picture was blown up from this Polaroid. And the original Polaroid, as I said, it's deteriorated, but there was a red line that followed this energy field, or whatever that is, that wrapped around Nancy's neck. So I keep this in my photo montage just to remind me. The Buddhists also say, they have a belief system that the spirit stays with the body 40 days after death. And this was 30 days. Where it stays or where it is. But anyway, we're talking about pushing the envelope in terms of belief systems, because I don't dwell on this. I mean, I don't know. I can't explain it. It's just, when I look at it, I think, well, I have no idea. But it does help me to realize that there is a hidden reality, and we are picking up that veil of that in science and physics, and we are gradually peeling away some of the mystery, and it may not be solved in our lifetime. And I'm not here, selling T-shirts and or anything about you don't have. This is just my experience. But my reality has certainly shifted on many levels because of my personal experience, which all of us, this is the way we measure what happens, through personal experience, subjective experience. Anyway, next week, we are going to have a program called Abracadabra. And we will be actually having an experiential evening. And the ancients got into the hidden realities with psychoactive plants or rituals, whatever. But we actually, in this society right now, have rituals that can move us into hidden realities for ourselves. So thank you for coming.